Today we will be learning about absolute value. Please copy down the standard benchmark indicator at the top of a clean page in your math notebook. The student will identify and represent and describe absolute value. You can pause the video here to copy down the SVI. Understanding integers. Negative integers are the opposite of positive integers. 0 is neither positive nor negative. The opposite of 0 is 0. Positive integers are also called counting numbers. The absolute value of an integer is the distance from that integer to 0 on the number line. Distance is always a positive measure, so the absolute value of any integer is always positive. So in our example right here, we have -7 and 7 are both 7 units away from 0. So the distance from 0 to 7 is 7 units, so the absolute value of 7 is 7. Absolute value is represented by those two straight bars, one on either side of the number. The distance from 0 to -7 is also 7 units. So the absolute value of -7 is also 7. So absolute value is always a positive number. Use the number line above. Write the integer for each point. Then write its opposite and absolute value. So for A, we have 0. So we know 0's opposite is 0. And the absolute value of 0 is 0. B is at 11, so it's positive 11. Its opposite is negative 11. And the absolute value of both positive 11 and negative 11 is 11. For C, it's at positive 1, so the opposite is negative 1, and the absolute value of both positive 1 and negative 1 is 1. For D, D is at -4, so the opposite is 4, and the absolute value of -4 and 4 is 4. For E is at -2, so its opposite is positive 2, and the absolute value of both 2 and -2 is 2. So for F is at -10, so its opposite is positive 10, and the absolute value of both -10 and positive 10 is 10. For G, we know it's at positive 6, so the opposite is -6, and the absolute value of positive 6 and -6 is 6. For H, we know it's at -3, so the opposite is positive 3, and the absolute value of 3 and -3 is 3. For J, we know it's at positive 3, so its opposite is -3, and the absolute value is 3. Number sense. John borrowed $6 from Adam. The next week, John borrowed $15 more from Adam. Write an integer that represents John's total debt to Adam. So we know 6 plus 15 is 21. So we know John's borrowed a total of $21. Since he owes it to Adam and it's a debt, it's going to be represented by -$21. All right, for 11, for reasoning, what is the opposite of -9? Well, we know the opposite of -9 is 9. And they want to know what's the opposite of -9, so they want to know what's the opposite of 9, which is -9. Please make sure you've copied all of the work down on your paper and glue this paper in your math notebook.